Welcome children. Today we continue with the chapter on the Mughal Empire for standard 7th, and this is part 3 of the chapter. In this video we are going to learn about Akbar, his conquest and his policies. Now children, as I mentioned in my second video that Humayun recaptured all the Mughal territories and then he could only rule for 1 year when he died accidentally, and Akbar at that time was only 13 years old when he had to take command of the Mughal Empire. Now since Akbar was only 13 years old and he had no idea as to how to control the Mughal Empire, he was helped by a trusted friend of Humayun called Bairam Khan. Bairam Khan acted as a regent to Akbar. Who is a regent? Regent is a person who takes care of the prince till he is matured enough to take over the empire and become the real emperor. Okay, so under Bairam Khan's guidance, Akbar grew up to become a very competent and able emperor. Now when Akbar became old enough, he appointed 9 like-minded people who took care of different things in the empire like administration, revenue, books, music. Okay, and these 9 like-minded people were called as Navratnas, the 9 jewels of in Akbar's court, and one of them you know is very famous is Birbal. Now Akbar, with the help of his 9 jewels and impressive army, Akbar was now unstoppable. Throughout his rule of 50 years, he kept expanding his empire to the north, to the west, to the east, and then to the Deccan. So you see, Akbar ruled for almost 50 years, right from 1556 to 1605. And you can see the green portion when he first became the emperor. This was the portion that he controlled, and then we can see the expansion taking place, and throughout his 50 years of rule he kept on expanding and expanding his empire, and we can divide the expansion into 3 phases. Now we can divide the expansion of Akbar's empire into 3 phases. You can see the first phase was between 1556 to 1570, then the second phase from 1570 to 1585, and the third phase from 1585 to 1605. Now in the first phase of Akbar's rule between 1556 and 1570, so right in the very first year 1556, the Afghans, who were very angry because Humayun had recaptured their territories from them, they were just waiting to attack and get back their territories, and knowing that Akbar was too young, wouldn't be able to handle this war, so they marched ahead. But under the able guidance of Bairam Khan, Akbar was able to win this war. It was called the Second Battle of Panipat in 1556. And the Afghans was led by a capable general called Hemu, and it is said in the war that an arrow pierced Hemu's eye and he fell down from his horse, and his army thought that since the general is dead, so they started to retreat, and this is how Akbar won the second battle of Panipat. But this did not stop him. Under the able guidance of Bairam Khan, he went and defeated the Sisodiya Rajputs of Mewar. Okay, so the expansion continued. You can see how the expansions are continuing. Now, so you see children, in the first phase, Akbar, under the able guidance of Bairam Khan, he was able to defeat the Afghans in the second battle of Panipat. He occupied Mewar, and he also was able to suppress the rebellion by his half-brother Mirza Hakim and captured Kabul. So by this time now, Akbar was old enough to handle the empire. Now in the first phase, he also captured Gujarat. So in the first phase, under the able guidance of Bairam Khan, he was able to defeat the Afghans in the second battle of Panipat, he occupied Mewar, Kabul, and then Gujarat also. He was able to capture this. So you can see now the extent of his empire, it is expanding. Yes. Now, by the second phase, Akbar was old enough to take independent decisions. So, we see in the second phase of his expansion between 1517 and 1585, he went on to conquer further east in Bihar, Bengal, and Orissa. Now, by the third phase of Akbar's rule between 1585 and 1605, Akbar went northwest and conquered Kandahar and Kashmir. Then he entered into the Deccan. He conquered Now, Akbar respected his Rajput enemies a lot because of their courage and bravery. Okay, and he talks about it in his book called Akbarnama, which tells us about Akbar's Rajput policies. Now, Akbar defeated the Rajputs in multiple occasions, but he was always respectful. He did not humiliate them even after they lost the war, because he knew that to manage such a vast empire he would require the help of the Rajputs. Akbar appointed many Rajputs as his nobles. He also recruited many others in the Mughal administration. He started the practice of matrimonial alliances with the Rajputs. In fact, he too married a Rajput princess, Jodha Akbar. And with this kind of practices, he won over the Rajputs and they remained faithful to him. Apart from the Rajput policies, the most impressive policies that Akbar started was a proper administrative system that he created. His grandfather Babur and his father Humayun were busy in conquering and expanding the empire. They did not pay attention how the empire should be governed or administered, and it is said that it was Akbar who started this impressive administrative system which made the Mughal Empire truly strong. Now let us learn about the impressive administration policies set up by Akbar. Like we have today in India, we have the Union India, and we have a government in the center, and then the entire country is divided into states. From the states it is looked after by the chief minister and the governor. Similarly, on similar lines we can see Akbar's administration too. Now the center, that means the entire central administration was like a dictatorship system. That means the entire powers were held with the emperor Akbar. Okay, so it was a central dictatorship system. So whatever he ordered had to be followed by the others. So that was the central administration. So the emperor had all the powers and he acted like a dictator, and he was known as the Badshah or the monarch. Now, to help the emperor in the administration, he was helped and assisted by a council of ministers. There were many other people under him who helped him for the effective administration of the empire. So now let us see who were the council of ministers for the emperor. We have the Wazir, who was also the Diwan. He was the revenue head who collected the taxes. Then Mir Bakshi, who looked after the army. Then we have the chief Qazi, who acted as the chief judge, as the judiciary looked after. Then the Sadr, who granted grants to scholars and students, and Mir Saman, who looked after the home affairs of the empire. Mir Saman means the household things, that means the home minister. And Vakil, just like the prime minister, who advised the emperor on many occasions. For a better and effective administration, the entire Mughal empire under Akbar's time was divided into small units like we have states today. They were called as subas. So he divided the entire empire into 15 subas, and each suba was looked after by a subedar. And this, so now we will see the provincial administration during Akbar's time. Now the subas, that is the states as I told you, were further subdivided into sarkars like we have districts today, and these sarkars were further divided into parganas or mahals as they called. They were the village level. So you can see it was similar in today's lines. We have the central administration, the state administration, and the local administration. So this is how the provincial administration was there during Akbar's time. Now each Suba was looked after by a Subedar who was responsible for both political and military functions, and a Diwan who was a finance officer who collected the taxes. And they were held by a number of other officials. Now there were other officials who helped the Subedar, like there were Bakshi, the military paymaster, the Sadar, the in charge for religious affairs, Faujdar, they were the military commanders, and Kotwal, who were the town police. So these were the various officials who helped the Subedar in the state. Okay, and so this is how an effective administration was developed by Akbar in those times, which we follow it today also. So because of his effective administration, the Mughal Empire became really strong and continued to rule for almost 300 years. Now the lowest level of administration during Akbar's time was the village, and it was looked after by a Mukadam, Chowkidar or Patwari. Like today, the villages are looked after by a Panchayat headed by a Sarpanch. Now let's have a look at the revenue administration during Akbar's time. Now the main source of income for Akbar during that time was the taxes that he levied on the peasants. So land revenue was the main source of income. Akbar was very fascinated by Sher Shah's revenue administration. Now he wanted to set up his revenue administration on the lines set up by Sher Shah Suri, and wanted to make certain improvements in it. So for that he appointed Todarmal, who was earlier working for Sher Shah, as his revenue minister. So Akbar, with the help of Todarmal, who was an excellent revenue minister, he made certain improvements in the revenue administration. Now Todarmal started a new system called the Zabti system was introduced, and in this system the land was measured. The peasants' land were first measured by a uniform system of measurement which was called as a bigha. Now under this Zabti system, first the land of the peasants was surveyed. They looked into the fertility of the land, the yield of the crop that the land could give them, and then accordingly the land was divided into several categories. Now after the land was surveyed, the land was divided into 4 categories. First was Polaj, which is a fertile land where the crops were grown regularly. Then Paroti, where the land had to be left fallow, that means nothing could be grown there for a year, so that the land regains its fertility. The third was Chachar, where the land had to be left fallow for 3 to 4 years. Okay, nothing can be grown there, so that the land revives itself and gets back its fertility. Then Banjar, where the nothing grows there, a barren land which has been left fallow for more than 4 years. So first, after the survey, the peasants' lands were divided into 4 categories, and the method and the standard of measurement that they used was bigha, like today we use acres. Now after the land was surveyed, accordingly tax was fixed. Okay, so normally it was 1/3 of whatever the yield was there. So 1/3 of the yield would go to the emperor. It would be either paid in cash or in kind. Kind means they could also give in, if they have grown wheat, they gave 1/3 of it, of its produce, to the sultan or the king. Now under this Zabti system, Akbar was also very considerate about the peasants in case of floods or famines, they were exempted from giving taxes. They did not have to pay any tax. Now the revenue officers or the zamindars who collected this tax were asked and instructed by Akbar that they should be kind to the peasants and not force them to pay the tax. So now children, let us look into the military administration set up by Akbar. You can see the Mughal army consisted of the infantry, then the artillery, the cavalry and the elephantry, and the most important branch of the Mughal Empire was the cavalry. That means soldiers who fought on horsebacks. Now in the military administration, Akbar introduced a very innovative policy which was called as the Mansabdari system. Okay, and the Mansab means a rank in the army. Every person who joins the army gets a rank and is called as a Mansabdar. And so this system was called as the Mansabdari system. Now children, Mansabdari is a graded system. Right? For example, when a child joins the school, he goes into the primary section, then he completes the primary section, goes into the middle section, and after the middle section he goes to the secondary section and then to the higher secondary section. So similarly, when a soldier joins the army, he starts from a low rank, and then depending on his loyalty and service in the army, he is given a promotion. Okay, so depending on that, his responsibilities and salaries are fixed. Now children, a Mansabdar's rank is decided on two things, Zat and Sawar. Now Sawar is the number of horses that he keeps, and Zat is the number of soldiers. So the more horses and the soldiers he keeps, the more higher the rank is. Now suppose a Mansabdar has a Zat of 5,000. So he is given a higher rank than the one who has 1,000 Zats. Okay, so accordingly the ranks are fixed in the army. So depending on the Sawars and the soldiers that a Mansabdar keeps, he gets salary accordingly. So the more the soldiers and the horses that a Mansabdar keeps, he will get high salary, and the ones who get high salary obviously will have more military responsibilities. Now what are the military responsibilities of a Mansabdar? Now every Mansabdar, whether he is in the low rank or at the high rank, he has to maintain a certain number of cavalrymen called Sawars, horsemen, soldiers on horses. So when he is at a low rank, maybe he has to maintain only 10, and if he is a high rank, maybe 10,000. Then all these cavalrymen have to be registered. Okay, like we have seen, certain ID proof has to be given, and all the horses have to be branded a seal and has to be made a royal seal that they are checked. And to maintain the army, the Mansabdars were given a special allowances to maintain their army apart from their salaries. Now how did the Mansabdar receive his salary? Now a Mansabdar was given a piece of land which was called as a Jagir, and from that land he could collect the taxes which was equal to his salary. Now once a Mansabdar was assigned a Jagir or a piece of land, he could only collect the taxes. He could not administer that land. Okay, he could only collect money enough for his household and to maintain his troops. He could not get more than that. Now to keep a check on these Mansabdars so that they don't collect more taxes from the Jagirs that they're given, the land that has been given to them, their rank was not hereditary. Okay, so after they die, this land was not given to his son. It was taken away from them and given it to someone else. So they could not actually collect more taxes. They could only collect the same amount equivalent to their salary to maintain their own day-to-day expenditures and to maintain their army. Now the ranks in the Mansabdari was ranging between 10 to 10,000. So the lowest rank was 10, that means 10 horsemen and 10 soldiers, and the highest that they could keep was 10,000 horsemen and 10,000 soldiers. So with this Mansabdari system, Akbar did two things. He ensured that the Mansabdars don't become powerful, like we have seen in the Iqta system. The Iqtidars became powerful because they could administer the land and collect the taxes, but in this case, the Mansabdars could only collect the tax. They could not administer the land or the jagirs that were given to them. So he ensured that they don't become powerful, and in this way he ensured that his army was always ready and prepared and maintained by the Mansabdars. Now, after the effective military administration, let us now look into the judicial administration. Now, king was the highest authority in the judicial system. Highest authority means if any person who does not like the verdict given by the courts can reach up to the king. He could get into the king's court and get justice. So the king was the highest authority. Apex means the highest authority. Now the king was held by a chief justice who was called as the Qazi. Now all the cases that were tried were according to the law which were written in the Quran. So if it is whatever punishment was given, it was according to whatever was written in the Quran. Now sometimes severe punishments were given for major crimes, like the hands and legs were cut off, or maybe they were hanged also. Now let us look into the religious policies of Akbar. Akbar is said to be a very secular ruler. Secular ruler means he was very tolerant towards all religion, and he did not enforce anyone to follow Islam. They were given the freedom to follow any religion of their choice. Now Akbar was very interested to know about the religious and social customs of various other religious faiths. So for that he started discussions with ulemas, the Islam priests, the Brahmins, the Roman Catholic priests, the Zoroastrian priests. He called all of them, all of the religious other groups, and had a discussion with them. Now Akbar made a house of worship called the Ibadat Khana, where people from all religious faiths, all the priests and all the learned people from all other religious beliefs, they sat together and had discussions with Akbar, and this was called as the Ibadat Khana. Okay. Now, after having multiple discussions with the priest and the religious scholars, Akbar now realized that these priests actually gave more emphasis to rituals and dogmas and were often bygones. Now, what are rituals? All the common rituals that we do in pujas. Then dogmas is their interpretation of a certain thing. If they tell us to do havan, we just blindly follow them and do it without realizing what are the impacts. Okay, so whatever they tell us, we blindly follow them, and they are bygods. Bygods means that they believe that their religion is the best and the other religion is not good. And Akbar now realized that the division and the disharmony that was created in the society, it was because of these priests, because they gave certain instructions in a way. Okay, so that created a lot of divisions in the society. And another thing, he realized that all religions have some good points. No religion is bad. They all have certain good things to tell us. So now let us see Akbar's religious policy. As I told you, he was very liberal and secular. He did not force anyone to follow any religion, and he said that all religions are good and they are all leading to one God. Okay, and for this he abolished the tax which was levied on the people, the Hindus, when they went on a pilgrimage. So he abolished that tax which was called as jizya. He also allowed the Hindus to build temples and gave them grants, and he also stopped forcible conversion. Earlier people were forced to convert to Islam. He stopped that, and he got many religious Hindu books, Ramayana, Mahabharata, translated into Persian. Now, Akbar came up with an idea called Sule-Kul. That means he said there should be universal peace, there should be tolerance. Okay, he disapproved the practice of sati and killing of animals for meat. He established a code of conduct, like you should be honest and loyal, but he did not force it on anyone. And he believed in the unity of all people. He developed his own religion called Deen-e-Ilahi. Akbar developed his own religion called Deen-e-Ilahi, and in this religion it had all the good points from all the other religious faith, but he did not force this religion on anyone. Whoever willingly wanted to follow could follow this religion of Deen-e-Ilahi. Now you must be wondering, how do we know so much about Akbar and his policies and conquests? Yes, it was because of this book called Akbarnama, written by Abul Fazl. Now Abul Fazl was Akbar's close friend and one of the 9 gems in his court. Now he was given the responsibility of writing the history of Akbar's reign, and so he has written 3 volumes of Akbarnama. Now, as I told you, Abul Fazl had written Akbarnama, which was in 3 volumes. So you can see volume 1 of Akbarnama dealt with Akbar's ancestors. The second volume recorded all the events and conquests in Akbar's reign, and the third volume of Akbarnama, which is called as Ain-e-Akbari, deals with Akbar's administration, household, army, revenue, and the geography of his empire. So children, in this part we have covered about Akbar and his conquest and policies. We will cover the rest of the Mughal emperors in my next video. Till then, do view and subscribe. Thank you.